it aired in 2011,
Yeah.
which is definitely a different time than 2024. In season two, we said, hey, would it be funny like if you don't laugh, if you can't laugh, if you laugh, you lose. So we were just sitting there, and I was like, what if I was a massage chair? And then everybody bust out laughing.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Hardcore Italians podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining once again. Me and Mike have an amazingly talented guest in store for you all today. He is a talented comedian. He is an author. He was a member of the Impractical Jokers. He also has a comedy special, Messing with People, which can be found on YouTube. He has also an upcoming comedy tour, which check the dates and obviously attend if you're in the area. Talking about so much today, and also his podcast, Two Cool Moms, that he does with his co-host, Steve Byrne. The list goes on and on, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Joe Gatto to the show. Joe, how's it
We're
going?
here, everybody. We're here, paisans. How we doing? Everybody good?
Doing
Everybody
well.
I got a donut
Good.
in honor of you, man. Eating nice
Oh, there you go, man. It's on a canola. What are you doing?
I know.
Need a
I'm a
cannoli.
disgrace.
Joe, listen, man, I just want to say it's an honor to have you on here. I'm such a huge fan. Like, you have no idea if there's ever a stressful time or I'm upset or anything. Like, I've always turned on Impractical Jokers, and it makes me forget about it all. Like, it means a lot to me having you here and just your show. And I appreciate your
No.
comedy. You do a phenomenal job.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I love. I learned that early on that people were using the show and me as a source of getting through life, and that's not lost on me. I know how hard it could be firsthand. So
Yeah.
much love to you, buddy. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. And my biggest question I have for you watching the show is, how do you keep a straight face with all these jokes like Crandus McBasketball? And what, like, do you have something you're thinking about to keep a straight face? Because it seems hard.
Pastries mostly. It's pretty much what's always on the mind, No, I've dabbled. Embarrassment comedy has really been my wheelhouse forever. Even before the show, it's always how I've made my friends laugh, made those guys laugh. Anybody in my life knows that I'm not afraid of the uncomfortable. I live in there and have a good time in the pocket. So I just think over years and years, of experience dealing with that really helped me shine in that format.
I love it,
Absolutely.
especially too, like all the slang you had, like especially with that game. I feel like you guys use a lot of Italian like slang
Oh yeah.
terms and things like
Oh yeah,
that.
a
Like,
lot of the Italian stuff made its way through. I mean, one of the biggest one was on the brotch when I would always say if we wanted something free, it would be on the arm, and that came from my Italian uncles out on Staten Island. Like this is on the brotch, So it always became a thing with us, even just out shopping, messing around, like what's the action here, or something we'd always say, and just all these little terms that definitely stem from like my Italian upbringing.
yeah, exactly. That's why with the merch, I wanted to get you a couple of those things like "Don't be a chooch," just surrounded by stew
I
nods. I'm
love the
like,
"Don't Be a Chooch" one was great. Yeah, I love that. That was really cool.
thanks, man.
The
Appreciate
Stu
it.
Nods one is fun. You guys have some great merch, man.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
Mike, him and his team created all that stuff. I'm just happy to be a part of the whole journey with Mike and doing this podcast with him. Joel,
Don't sell yourself short. You bring some value to the table.
100%.
I try. I mean, if it's not my good looks or my Italian stash, then I don't know
I
what
mean,
it
you
is.
got something. You got to be bringing something there. You got the Luigi. Everybody's a fan of it.
Woohoo!
Love it.
Joel, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because obviously in today's climate of comedy, nowadays comedians have to be careful what they say because of cancel culture. And I know you do a lot of touring. You've been touring alone now for quite a bit. I mentioned you have a upcoming tour. Let's get into it. That's coming out. That you're doing, obviously.
Yeah.
Actually, funny enough, a couple of shows that are in Chicago that Mike will plug in after, because Mike's actually located in Chicago. I'm in
Oh,
Toronto.
I'm coming to Joliet really soon, actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's super
around
close.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You come on through, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%. I'll check it out. Thanks.
So my question for you, Joe, is like, how do you navigate cancel culture? And especially, do you ever think do you ever get worried about saying a joke that might offend people, or you kind of just do what your heart tells you to do and not worry about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm not that kind of. I'm really my kind of comedy is storytelling, really. So it's all a perspective kind of thing from experiences I've been through. Really, it's not really. I found my format pretty quickly with stand up. Is I'm just sharing stories, punching up with the jokes, and just so people can get a little bit more of insight of how my mind works and what makes me me. My new show, Let's Get Into It, really breaks down. Like I'm always obsessed with how people become who they are and where they are at life, right? So I didn't start off this bold, crazy, loud Italian guy, as a kid, I was super geeky. I was this math loving, mathlete kind of nerdy kid that used to make tests for my father. I used to break open Encyclopedia Britannicas and like prepare a multiple choice exam. So when my dad came home from his 10-hour workday selling life insurance door to door, I'd meet him at the door and be like, "Pop quiz, bitch," like so it'd be like a little. It was like weird, like how that became who you are. So I
Yeah.
just look at little pieces of like there's all these moments in your life that you could pick if you had to like you look at your personality, you had to pick apart things like you could probably think back to specific moments that made you that kind of person or put that into the the flask of so I just go through that whole thing and now I'm a dad, right? So like now I know that as hard as we try, your parents definitely have an influence on who you become. You turn into your parents and there's some sort of capacity, and my poor kids, I got two kids, they're messing with my DNA, so good luck to them. So I talk about that as well, and it's a really fun show. And I just always love live performance. People come out. I want to make an event where people can forget the bullshit that is life, and just laugh with people. So I think that's really important.
I like too on how Impractical Jokers, like that's kind of the concept of the show is pushing the limits because you want the other person to not say something. So was there ever any like backlash you got for something like that, or do you have a pretty because me
Not
and Adam were
now.
talking?
I mean,
Yeah,
not then, maybe now, but I mean, it's 10 years old at this point. The first,
yeah,
I've been on, I did a decade of that. It aired in 2011,
yeah,
which is definitely a different time than 2024. But I think for the most part, like, look, it's easy to just go up and say, just make somebody try to say something super sexist, super racist, super whatever. We never really did that. We always
yeah,
wanted it to be weird more than edgy, So I think that's really where the show lived, which was good. Of course, you make thousands of jokes over 300 episodes, like thousands. Of course, a couple of them are going to be, if you pick apart, some of them are going to be a little bit too much edgy. But for the most part, I think they were just weird. And that was where it was fun. And then we came up with all these mini games where it just wasn't, people really just attribute the show to put an earpiece in, say something. If you don't say, you lose. That was only a third of the show. If you
yeah,
look at the stuff we came up with, all those games and all these things we did, it really just was, it's just the easiest way to explain the show. So
mhm,
people just like defaulted to that, but that's not what the show was. The show was so much more than that. It was saying this stuff like you talked about Crane just basketball, right?
yeah,
In season 2, we said, hey, would it be funny like if you don't laugh, if you can't laugh, if you laugh, you lose. That
yeah,
became such a big part of the DNA of the show, where we came
yeah.
up with all these challenges where if you couldn't laugh, you would lose them. We would have to get through these stupid moments with people. And keeping a straight face was really helped me out a lot with that
Yeah,
format.
I was gonna say that was like your specialty of it, because not everyone could do it. You were good at it, man. That's why I was always like, I wonder what's going through your mind. But
Yeah, I was doing a lot of pinching the pinky, kind of thing, just biting the lip a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's also interesting because like Mike mentioned, it's hard to do that to keep a straight face. I know like even in SNL they do a good job of that too. Unless you're Jimmy Fallon, which he's notorious for laughing
Yeah,
when
for sure. Yeah,
those
for sure.
sketches.
But seeing them break like it's so good too, like that because you shouldn't, but like seeing some of them break. I mean, Heidi Gardner just she crushed it with that Beavis and Butthead sketch because I think what made it so funny was how her just reaction to it of it all, and it was one of my favorite things. Like I've had the pleasure of meeting her and working with their she's got a charity they work with out in Kansas City called Big Slick, where they help this children's hospital out there. And I was able to do it last year. And just such great people. And just to know her and see her in that moment, like for me, that was like cushy broke made that sketch so much better for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even like we also talked about like Mike was mentioning about Impactful Jokers a bit. One thing that I'm really curious because I know stuff behind the scenes that many fans don't know about, like if there was ever a prank that you thought of, because like you said, a lot of the pranks you guys did were not really edgy but weird. So was there ever a prank where you just thought about that you wanted to do, but it was just too weird or too over the top that you just didn't end up going through with it? Was there any funny behind the scenes stories, anything like
Yeah,
that?
I mean, there was some things you always have ideas, and it was a really collaborative environment, which is great, So you just throw stuff out and see what happens. I remember massage chair punishment, right? We were just sitting in the room because every season started with just us sitting in a room talking, right? And thinking of
yeah,
ideas because we had to come up with so many ideas, right? So we were just sitting there and I was like, what if I was a massage chair? And then everybody bust out laughing because we could like kind of picture it. I was like, yeah. And they're like, what is it? I'm like, I'm just a massage chair. And then we had to write it up and send it over to the network to approve, right? And the write up literally just was massage chair punishment. Joe's a massage chair, and then the network called over. We're talking to Simi, and he's like, yeah, what is this? And he's laughing. I go, you get it? I'm like, what do you mean? What is it? It is I'm a massage chair, and he just like, but yeah, like it's just funny, It's so like sometimes something was that simple, but then other ones were just these huge things. One of the things I was really annoyed by, like, before, I left Joker's pretty unexpectedly. I had a couple things in the hopper. One of them was I was going to make a pop-up escape room for the three of them. So I had them,
Okay.
and I had them, like, the whole idea, like, I was going to call a meeting, be like, guys, the network just gave us this big note. I got to talk to you, and just lock them in a room together and have it be an escape room. And I had all
That'd be
these
great.
challenges set up and stuff, which was really fun and funny. And I just wasn't able to pull it off. Time ran out, but
Mhm.
yeah, so there's stuff like that. But for the most part, I think we were able to pull off a lot. Over 300 episodes, you need a lot of ideas, so they kept flowing.
Absolutely.
Was it harder to pull off jokes like because where you guys started and where you ended up? I mean, the show grew in popularity like crazy. I mean, how
Yeah.
hard is it as it, once you're at season 10 and things like that? Like, how hard is it do you get recognized constantly? Like, is it harder to do
Yeah,
jokes?
yeah, it happened a lot, but for the most part, if New York was an ally because there's so many people, so once we
Yeah.
filmed outside of New York, it got harder. But then, you come up with some tricks. The focus group stuff really worked, really helped out. Pre-interview stuff, bump
Yeah.
into people in the hallways to see if they recognized you before they went into the room to film.
Oh, nice.
That was a big thing. Like, we would check in each other's people. So if I'm
Hmm.
sitting at a desk checking in Murray's turn, they don't recognize me. They're not going to recognize Murray when they go
Oh,
in.
yeah. That's
So there was,
smart.
like, tricks like that. But the hardest thing always was, you'll see later, we stopped going out as teams, because, like, you could kind of recognize one, but you recognize me and Sal. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, that's them for sure. So
Yeah.
that was a big thing that we had to kind of to change
Yeah.
around.
Sometimes you might see someone and not be sure, and then yeah, you see both,
They're
and
like,
then
who's this guy? Is that Steve Carell? Like, I got that a lot.
Steve, hey, that's
That
not
that's
bad
a
actually.
that's a whole bit. I tell that whole story in my my comedy special that's out on YouTube now, messing with people. My first tour, I
Mhm.
tell the whole story about how these people at at a sub shop thought I was Steve Carell and took a picture with me. And then the whole team came out and they're like, "Oh, I
What
got
do you
Steve
mean?
Carell." And I was
Yeah.
just messing with him, and I was just like, I didn't talk because I don't sound like him, but I kind of looked like him, especially back a couple of years ago. So I was always like, and I just, like, took a
And you
picture,
can't let
and I
people
just
down. Yeah, you can't
oh
let
yeah, and
people. You have to be
I
like,
just stole everything. I just left with everything. And I was like, that's Steve Carell's problem now, man. Jimmy
that's
G, he owes Jimmy John's a couple hundred.
That's hilarious, man. I mentioned also, Joe, at the beginning of the episode, that you have a podcast, Two Cool Moms, right? And you guys obviously give great advice, and all it all stems from, your mother, your mom and Steve's mom, how you guys like wanted to give advice like them. But was
Yeah.
there ever a time you gave a really crazy, ridiculous piece of advice that just was just hilarious, that like it kind of worked out too, though, or?
Yeah. I mean, I always, my advice always came from my mom was this super bold, 5 foot nothing Sicilian Italian batshit crazy woman who just, like, handled her business. She was great, man. So, it was just always, it always lent towards the bold. Like, so if people aren't bold, they would really have to step out of their comfort zone. I'd be like, look, just quit your job then. All you're doing is complaining about it. Just quit it. You'll
Mhm.
find one. Just quit. Just do it. And I remember once a good friend of mine ended up mentoring for a little while. She was like, didn't want to, she's like, oh, I don't know. I was like, look, I'm not going to talk to you anymore about your annoying job. Just quit. And just quit. And I just kept on. I was like, just quit and just do it. And then she did. And she ended up quitting and found a job, which I think she's still with it, actually, for, like, over, like, 12 years. She just found something she loved. So I was like, you'll always find a side hustle. You'll always do what you got to do. If you got to wait tables, do what you want to do. But, like, this life's too short to be miserable, man. You just got to get up and, to hate your job to a point where it was debilitating for her, where she was always just, like, dreading going. I was like, I can't imagine that life. You got to find something you hate less. You know what I mean? Like, find something you
Yeah.
Yeah.
hate
No,
less even. It's hard. Like, you got to work, you got to pay the bills. I get it. But find something. If you are absolutely tortured by your existence, like, life's too
yeah.
short, man. You'll find something else.
Yeah, you don't want to live for the weekends, I love that.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. Um,
And look, I mean, you don't have to love your job.
yeah.
Just don't
You gotta
hate it to a
tolerate. You gotta
point where you're,
tolerate it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you tolerate it. At least tolerating it should be the bar, right? Tolerating what you do should be the bar, I think.
Yeah, 1000%. Joe, too, so tell me about the dogs, man, all named after Italian pastries. I'm curious,
Yeah,
was
man. Yeah, the Gatto Pups and Friends. That's
yeah.
that's our rescue out here on Long Island. It's a senior rescue. We've done a nonprofit we've run for the past 2 years. We just adopted out our 148th dog, I think.
Wow.
Just found a home, which is great. Yeah. So they're all of my dogs. I have 12 dogs, which are mine, the pups. Gatto pups. So I got, cannoli, biscotti, tartufo, Napoleon, tiramisu. We got a brother and sister fettuccine Alfredo. So like
Oh my God, I
those
love
are
that.
our pups. Yeah, they're fantastic. I love them, man. The dogs are great. And the rescue's been great. It's a big part of my life. It's a family affair out here on Long Island where we have a shop out here, an adoption center, which we have open a couple days a week. We do like adoption events. We're throwing a
I
big
love that.
holiday party out here on Long Island. It's the big event in December 20th, which is our big fundraiser. One of those big, all you could eat, all you could drink kind of fun times come out, raffle baskets and things during the holidays, which is always nice.
Mhm.
And it's just great. It's just been really, really fun to be able to do that part, to extend my, fame into helping these dogs.
Yeah, I love that. Giving back. It's important. And
Oh, yeah.
one last question about the dogs. Is that something you thought of ahead of time, or you just named the first one Cannoli and then you were just like, all right, I'm gonna keep this rolling?
No, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, we bought our first dog,
Mhm.
and I said, "Look, I'll buy it for you, but I got to be able to name it." And she, was okay. I named it Cannoli. I named her Cannoli, and she was like, "All right." And then when we rescued our first dog, Biscotti, who's still with us, and she's one of my favorites. Don't tell Spumoni, who's my other favorite. But she said, she was like, "Hey, I want to rescue a dog." I was like, "All right, I get to name it." And then it just became the thing, and I just kept naming them all these. We just found the trend. It was really fun. And
That's
actually,
got to be
my
confusing in
first
your house
book.
too.
No, it's all right. Look, you're yelling Spumoni. Like when we have cannolis, I was like, "I'll take a cannoli," and cannoli will come over. I'm like, "No, I'll have a cannoli." But my first book that I did was during COVID. It was a project. I liked photography, so I took pictures of my dogs and self-published this book called The Dog Father. It's called My Love of Dogs, Desserts, and Grown Up Italian.
Well,
And
I'm wearing this though. It's like
yeah,
the Godfather.
oh, there you go, man. Yeah, nice. Yeah. So that was my first book I did, which was so fun. It was a really nice coffee table book. I really enjoyed the project. And that led to me like liking books and looking that as a medium. And I came out with my kids' book, Where's Barry, in September, which was really fun to do too, because now like my son, part of my legacy is that I have see my kids drawn as a book. One of my favorite dogs is a book, Spumoni's in that one. So it's really, really cool.
That's awesome. And before we end up speaking about your book, one last question before we end up the show today. Your book, Where's Barry? Did you first test it out on your own kids to get their seal of approval? Or was that like the number one thing? It was like if they don't like it, then that's it. I can't get it out. What was the whole?
No, it was the story came from my son lost his stuffed animal one night.
Yeah.
And any parent knows it's a meltdown waiting to happen. So we had to find it. We went on a little search, found it around the house. But the big thing for me was like the drawings when they came in. Luke Flowers, who illustrated it, great guy. And he really brought the book to life. I just submit like a Word document that has words on a page, and he just makes this piece of art. And it's super collaborative, really fun. And he was like a fan of Joker's, and he like drew all this stuff. Like he hid a box of Scoopski patatas in the closet next to like a Captain Fat Belly like action figure. But my son noticed that my daughter wasn't in the book when he saw the first things, and I said, "This is awesome." And he said to me, he goes, "Where's Milana?" And we ended up putting her in the book. Like he runs by her yelling, "Where's Barry?" Like losing his mind. And he
Oh,
runs
that's
by her and
nice.
she's holding her little stuffy. She has a unicorn called Lily, and she's holding her little stuffed animal. And I thought that was really cool and really sweet that he picked up on that. So now they're
Yeah.
both in the book, and yeah, it's really fun. And then Spumoni totally became like the hero of the book. Like Spumoni's
Yeah.
expressions are hysterical. Like she is like she when they can't find the bear, she's laying on the floor completely defeated. Like she's out there, she's all excited running around the house. It's really cute. So I'm really happy with the way it panned out.
That's awesome, Joe. Yeah, like the thing about Hardcore Italians, Mike does a great job at like promoting this idea of family and being together, and we love how you're doing that as well with your book and your comedy shows and everything. Before we wrap up, everybody make sure tune into Joe's Messing with People comedy special on YouTube. Buy his book, Where's Barry? It's awesome. He's got his upcoming tour, like I mentioned, called Let's Get Into It. Joe, you got
Yep.
so many cool things, and check out his podcast, Two Cool Moms.
Yep.
Joe, thank you so much for doing this today. It was a
Yeah, thank you,
pleasure.
Joe.
We could talk to you for hours, but just to have this time with you today, it's we really appreciate it. So thank
Yeah,
you.
man, you guys are really cool. I dig what you do, and I'm a proud Italian. I'm a proud family man. So it seemed like a good fit to talk to you guys for a little bit. So I appreciate you. And of course, go to my website, Joe Gatto Official. That's the easiest way to find out all the silly stuff I got going on. But if you guys want to come out to a show and stuff, I'd love to see us.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
Thanks,
appreciate
Joe.
it.
You got it, guys. Take care.
Take care.